What's up, guys? Canes, what's up, man? What's up? We are, perfect timing, dude. Miami's looking really good. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the midweek matchups from this week, but primarily, we're going to focus on the weekend matchups coming up. Turn this music down a little bit. That's not bad, actually. Okay. Look, Miami is looking very good, Canes. Okay, so in my opinion, just from looking at the matchups coming up this week or this weekend, obviously you got to call out Arizona State and Mississippi State. Arizona State, it's actually really surprising that they are not ranked. And it looks like they're playing with a little bit of the chip on their shoulder. Because of that, we saw them just absolutely demolish Oklahoma. They are going to Arlington, the Rangers Stadium. They'll be playing Mississippi State game 1, 12 p.m. Friday. Georgia Tech has Northwestern this weekend. So Power 4 opponent. They'll look for a bounce back from the Georgia State series, and the Georgia State game. We'll talk about that a little bit. But they just didn't play well. A lot of errors. Defense is looking like it could be something. If you're gonna look at Georgia Tech as an overall team, the defense has been the one thing that is a little concerning if you're a Georgia Tech fan. It's not like this huge issue. But if you look at the errors they've made, I think 13 or 14 errors in 8 games. And it's just something that, again, that's not like a terrible number. In 9 games, we made like 13 or 14 errors. I'd have to look at the stat box again. But it is something, a little bit of a concern. Really, I think another huge series is obviously UCLA, Tennessee, or it's not a series, but they'll be playing multiple teams. But Tennessee, UCLA tomorrow is in that kind of round robin thing in Arlington. And Tennessee's looking for a bounce back as well, right? Getting beat at home against Kent State, the Fighting Zeke Pinkhams, who Kent State's going to be. I mean, Kent State looks like it's going to be a monster in the MAC this year. They played LSU really close, right? They swept Southeast Louisiana, who's always a really good team, and then beat Tennessee 2 out of 3 in close games, right? And they only lost Friday by 1 run. It was a 1-run game. So you're talking about, they won 2 of 3 against Tennessee, and they almost swept, right? They're 1 run away. And Tennessee could say the same thing, right? They lost by 1 run in game 2. So Tennessee could have easily won that series. But the bats for Tennessee seem to have been just a little bit quiet in that series. If we're looking further down, I think another good series is going to be West Virginia at Kennesaw State. Kennesaw State looks like they have a pretty solid team, and West Virginia coming in as number 24 in the country. We actually have a lot of good matchups this weekend. I mean, Baylor, Ole Miss. Baylor's looked pretty good. 9-5. What's up, dude? Yo, what's up? Go Canes. 10-0. Big series with the Gators. Yeah, the Gators. That's right. I know that's what you meant to say is Gators. But yeah, that's like what I was referencing is you got Clemson, South Carolina. South Carolina is not looking good. The Paul Mainieri era, it doesn't look like there's a bright future. I mean, South Carolina just not playing well. They lost to Queens. That was Queens' first Power 4 win, I believe, in program history, like win against a Power 4 opponent. So, and Clemson's playing really well, 8-0. Miami, Florida is going to be – this is like again, the great thing for Miami is, Miami and Florida, this is like a nice test for them going into ACC play. Miami's offense has been great. Miami's offense has been unbelievable. Like Kane said it preseason, just that Miami's offense was going to be elite. I actually didn't believe that And it's still, we're early, right? We'll find out in ACC play, but this will be a great test for their offense against Florida, who's got some really good arms, fantastic arms. So this is going to, I think this is going to be a 2 out of 3 series. I don't think this is going to be a sweep. But with Miami having it at home, right, they got a good chance to win this one. And that's a huge win. When you're talking national seed type repercussions for a series, this is the type of series where you look back and you think, man, Florida ends up having a really good year and they beat Florida 2 out of 3. That's a spot on the resume that all of a sudden kind of gives you that national seed push if Miami gets to that point. Auburn, Nebraska should be a pretty good series. Louisiana Tech, Southern Miss, that'll be a great series. Coastal Carolina, Texas, and they're playing that one in Houston. Virginia Tech is 7-1. They're going to be playing against A&M down there in Arlington. So we got some great matchups this weekend. This is a great weekend for college baseball. This is really the first big weekend of the season. And another one I'm looking forward to watching and paying attention to is also Kent State versus Rhode Island. Obviously, Rhode Island, you guys know Daniel Palka, who was on the stream last year a bunch. He's now an assistant coach at Rhode Island. They've started out 0-7. But they're expected to be very good in the A10. And so this will be a good, hopefully they get their first win of the year. So I'll be paying attention to that one as we look through some of these other matchups here. Bucky Banjo, what's up, Buck? Who's in worse shape, Coastal, Arizona, or Louisville? Man, that's a great question, Buck. I think it's probably... The only thing with Coastal is I think Coastal's the thing that Coastal has going for them is they've got good arms. Their offense has been kind of anemic so far, but sometimes that offense starts a little slow. I think listen, if your arms are performing well, it's a bigger red flag if your arms aren't performing well early in the year. It's also a red flag if your offense isn't, but the offense is such a momentum and got to get going type thing. It could just be early season issues, which is normal. But for me, I think of those teams, it's probably, I think I'd be split between Arizona and Louisville. I think both teams just haven't looked great, right? And the good thing is it's still early. All three, Coastal's in the best shape of those three. But Arizona and Louisville, it's super early. We could 40 games from now, we could all just not even be, we might not even remember how bad they were to start or how tough of a start it looked like. Canes looks good so far. We're just cracking the bat, man. Last night, I was so proud of our gentleman, the way we swung the bat in the 9th. Dude, and that's an impressive thing. Miami's had a couple really gut check wins where, last night was insane. Or sorry, 2 nights. Was it 2 nights ago, I think? Or last night. To be down, 6 runs in the 9th and come back and win. That's just, they've had a couple of those. They've had an extra inning back and forth battle that they've won. So Miami's offense has shown out really well. Pitching's looked good. And they've shown that they've got grit when it's a tough game or a tight game. I like Virginia Tech in that series. I don't think it's a series, Canes. I think it's just, maybe it's a series. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know there's 6. There's a bunch of teams down there playing. So you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I'd have to check the next games. Miami won't be seeing 80 Poo this weekend and probably not going to have a 20-mile-per-hour wind blowing out to right field. If they can take 2 from UF, I'll be a believer. Well, they're playing in Miami. They're playing it at Alex Rodriguez Field. So they do have home field advantage, and they're, who knows what the wind's going to do. But I don't think Miami, listen, every team hits better with the wind blowing out, but Miami's so far, I think we have to look at it objectively and say most teams in the country have not played a very tough schedule yet. And so of all those teams, Miami and Georgia Tech are really at the top offensively. And I think an argument could be made that Miami's offense has been maybe even more consistent than Georgia Tech's. Georgia Tech has had a few games where they've scored not as many runs, but they've had some huge games as well. They've only had 2 games where they didn't score 10. Louisville should be okay. I agree. I think Louisville's going to be okay. Dan McDonald's, he's going to have those guys. He's going to have those guys really pushing to get better and pushing to make an adjustment. Danny, no disrespect, but Lafayette is literally one of the worst D1 programs the past decade. Incredible academic institution, no doubt, for sure. But they haven't had a winning conference record in a decade. You're not wrong about that, Danny. You're not wrong about that. You're not wrong about that. But putting up a lot of runs is still putting up a lot of runs, Danny. Like we've seen, look at South Carolina got beat by Queens, right? We've seen some really, really good teams. LSU lost, right? A lot of teams, a lot of high ranked teams this week struggled in their midweek game. So, and Miami, that was and the other thing to think about, Danny, is they played 6 games at that week. Miami played 6 games. So, yeah, they played 4 against Lafayette, but they also played 2 in the midweek. And so, that shows they have some depth in the pitching staff. A 6-game series, a 6-game week for a college team, it's really tough no matter who you're playing to come out of there undefeated. So I give Miami credit for that, even if you think, the competition was not as good. And you're right. But, in the midweek, they played UCF. I forget what the other team was. But those are quality wins. UCF's got a really good program. They got a really good team this year. Dusty's in the chat. He's back. What's up, boys? Why didn't you tell me you're going live? Dude, because I've told you every time we go live and you haven't shown up. All right. Danny, K1, Danny Burke, the wind was blowing so hard to right field in the last game. I could have swung the bat, hit the home run. It was insane. Hey, you know what? But this is the thing. Like, I think it's a cop out to talk about the wind because the other team can hit with the wind too. Like the other team, the wind's doing the same thing for the other team. So got to find a way to do it. Bennett Gary with a home run, Jalen Watkins with a grand slam. Dusty, I told the world, baby, we are number one. Dusty, I will give Canes credit. He did say before the season in my first stream back that Miami would have one of the best offenses in the country, and I was not a believer. I did say their offense is going to be much improved, but I thought, it's going to be probably maybe above average offense in the ACC, but not elite as far as country goes. And again, it's still early. Miami's offense could just really regress, but as of now, Canes has been correct. Donde está, Dusty? That Georgia State freshman Cooper Lewis was fun to watch. What a beast. Yes. And Dusty was on the call for that game, and he said the same thing to me, texting me. He's like, dude, this kid's legit. Like, where did they get this guy from? Pumping mid-90s as a left-handed pitcher as a freshman. That's hard to find, right? And that guy's usually scooped up by big programs. I'm sure Canes would agree. Many South Florida high school teams would beat Lafayette. No joke. All right, Danny. We get it. Well, hey, Danny, we're going to find out this weekend, right? We're going to find out what the Canes are made of this weekend against Florida. Gators are getting swept this weekend by them Canes. Blue Green Street. What's up, Blue Green? Thanks for joining. Looks like we have another Canes fan in the chat. Could be, we're still waiting for Zach to make an appearance. Zach has not made an appearance this year yet. But I think Dusty made a great point about getting back to that Georgia State, Georgia Tech game. Georgia State did a really good job of mixing up their looks. Like every pitcher that came in was a totally different look. And I think that's something that in today's game, everybody is so biomechanized, right? Every pitcher is like, they're trying to make their mechanics so efficient. And a lot of the development people, and not really talking about college coaches, but like your facilities that are developing people, they're all teaching them to do the same thing. And so what you get is a bunch of pitchers that have great stuff, but as a hitter, and Dusty's exactly right about this, when you're facing what looks like basically the same guy over and over again, it doesn't matter. Like, it's like basically the starter never came out. You're facing a reliever that looks the exact same. And so I think what Georgia State did it great was, they brought in different looks. They bring in a lefty that's throwing cheese, then they bring in like a submarine slot, like kind of like a high slot submarine that's in the high 80s. And Georgia Tech's hitters I'll say this about Georgia Tech's hitters against that arm in particular. against like the lower. It's almost like in between a sidearm and a submarine. It wasn't like a true submarine. It's just the right, both lefties and righties. It just didn't look like they went up there understanding how they need to attack a guy like that, which is for a right-handed hitter against a righty that does that and it's going to run and sink it on you. You got to look for a pitch out over the plate, or anything in's going to be a ball, or it's going to be just really nothing you can handle. And then lefties, you got to look for stuff middle in if you're hunting a fastball, because it's going to run right back over the middle of the plate. And I just think you saw a lot of lefties chasing stuff off the plate because they weren't thinking that. And you saw a lot of righties as well being way too aggressive on pitches middle in and just hitting it straight in the ground or getting jammed. Kyle, nice job on the call the other day with the coach getting hit in the head. Yeah, that was scary, man. And that's the first time I've had one of those on a broadcast. And like, it's weird because you know how sensitive the situation is, because at the time you're like, this could be really serious. It also could be, again, very like they're just taking every precaution necessary when you get hit to the head. They don't, they want to make sure there's nothing structurally wrong. But I appreciate that, Buck. And I know I got your email about it too, by the way. I got your email mid-broadcast about the way we handled it. So I was just glad to see him get up under his own power, because at some point when a guy's down on the ground, and I think for like 10 minutes to 15 minutes, he hadn't moved. Like literally hadn't moved. I hadn't seen his hand. His hand was kind of up on his head the whole time for like 10 or 15 minutes. And I heard, from Georgia Tech strength coach, that he had a pretty big lump on his head, which makes sense. From the replay, it looked like he did kind of deflect it a little bit. He put his hands up and it looked like it deflected a little bit, but not a whole lot. But good thing he was wearing that helmet, man. There was a time where guys didn't have to do that. So I'm not calling 9. What's that? Are you calling any games this weekend, Kyle? No, I'm not. I'm not on the call this weekend. Not on the call this weekend. Canes are the best hitting team in the country, 1 through 9. No one compares. We don't concede. I would take issue with that, but your sentiment is close to correct. Miami so far has been, again, there's really two offenses you can talk about as being the best offense through the first 9-10 games of the season. It's been Georgia Tech and Miami. And Miami, you could certainly make an argument that Miami maybe has performed the best. I would really disagree with 1 through 9. Georgia Tech's lineup 1 through 9 it's maybe the best I've ever seen. Just to be fair, you got a guy hitting near the bottom of the lineup like Drew Rogers, who's in a lot of lineups is hitting like in the 3 or 4 hole, or 5th, and he's hitting like 7th or 8th. You got Will Baker, who's basically one of the best hitters in the country so far this year. He's near the bottom of the order, even though he's getting mixed into the middle a little bit more. And really, like, if you were going to look at Georgia Tech's lineup and think, all right, which hitter am I not least afraid of? It's probably Carson Curse, but he's walking a ton. He's hitting a bunch of doubles and triples. He's not going to hit a lot of home runs. But he's just been on base machine, high average, hitting a lot of doubles and triples and moving base runners. Pitchers can't take breaks against us, but you're right. You're right so far about Miami's offenses 1 through 9. And listen, that's so debilitating for a pitching staff when, generally on pretty much every lineup you face, there's usually 2 or 3 hitters that you think, okay, this is a hitter I can go after. This is a hitter that's going to be out, right? You're going to look at a lineup before a weekend series, and you're gonna basically say, all right, this guy we're going to get out consistently. This guy we're going to get out consistently. With Georgia Tech and Miami, there's not that right now. There's not one. Literally, like the first 6-7 hitters of Georgia Tech's lineup, it's insane. And I think Von Lackey's leading the team in home runs right now. Right. And no one would have thought that. I think everyone thought Von was probably going to be a 10+ guy coming into the year, and that may end up being where he ends up. But so far, Von Lackey's just continued the growth from last year. And again, I said on the broadcast, I think Von Lackey's maybe the greatest job that James Ramsey's ever done, because his freshman year, he didn't just not perform well. He looked lost at the plate. Taking fastballs right down the middle, chasing stuff out of the zone. Didn't look like he had any idea what he was doing. And he was kind of one of those late bloomer, late pickups for Georgia Tech, which is also insane that you're talking about a guy who I think had no Division I offers as a senior. And then 2 years later, he's a potential probably top 10 pick in the draft, which is also just insane. So ACC is too big. It's a shame Miami and Georgia Tech don't play each other. Yeah, I know. It is a shame that Georgia Tech and Miami don't play each other. Let's look at some Miami's numbers here and just kind of dive through it a little bit. It is a shame that Miami and Georgia Tech, because think about that series. My God. That would be an offensive nightmare pitching staffs. Okay, so right now, and I can actually just pull this up on screen. Let me share this. All right. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so right now, Miami as a team is hitting 374. They're OPSing 1,200. I think the most impressive thing, Miami's got 28 jacks in 10 games. 28. Really impressive. You're talking about a team last year that really their only real power threat was Daniel Cuvée. And if you look at their team now, Cuvé's got 6. Sosa, the freshman phenom who's been outstanding, has 5. Derek Williams got 4. So right now, Miami's offense looks a lot more. If you were to compare Georgia Tech and Miami, Miami's got the home run advantage right now. Miami's got the home run advantage. But the other thing that's really impressive, if you look here to the walks to strikeouts, you got 71 walks to 79 strikeouts. They've also stolen 18 bases. So this is a team that's really, really just a complete team. They're not going to steal as many bases as Georgia Tech probably, but they've scored 155 runs in 10 games. So they're only averaging 15 runs per game right now. Only 15. Dusty, nice job on the call recently talking through pitch sequencing strategy. My son and I are big fans of the Trevor Bauer videos when he was mic'd up in Mexican League talking through pitches. Yeah, and I do think, one of the things you see in college baseball now is a heavy reliance on just throwing a ton of off speed. And that can be effective up to a certain point. But once you're throwing that, I think this is what separates it, is when you're throwing 75 to 80% off speed, hitters just are going to make that adjustment because the off speed is no longer an off speed if you're throwing it that consistent, that high percentage of time. It's just what you're throwing, and hitters are going to time it up. And when you're throwing nothing but sliders, all of a sudden that chase factor is going to go away at a certain point. And so sequencing and knowing how to set hitters up and knowing, okay, I just threw this pitch. Now that's set up this pitch, right? You throw a fastball top of the zone or maybe up out of the zone. You can probably come back with a breaking ball and even hang it, and you're going to be okay because they're going to see fastball up out of the hand, and then it's a breaking ball into the zone, right? So learning how to sequence when you throw a fastball down and away for strike one, now you can go change up right off that same plane, and you're probably going to get a chase. It's just hitters. Everything's visual, and what people have to understand is that everything looks like a fastball when it comes right out of the hand. You can't pick up spin right out of the hand. You pick up spin. I can't tell you for certain, but it's more like when it's halfway or even maybe a little bit close to halfway home. That's when you can start seeing spin. The only time you can pick up a breaking ball is if you see that little hump out of the hand. But guys that have really good sliders, if they throw that correctly, it's going to look like a fastball out of the hand, right? So you can really set guys up if you understand that. Arrington McKay, what's up, Arrington? Thanks for joining. Do you think college baseball will ever get like football, where the best players in college are 3 to 5 year guys, forcing the MLB to draft older players early? Well, I think there is a push right now to restrict the draft in high school players. So we could see that happening very quickly. Now, if they do restrict drafting high school players in the Major League Baseball draft, they're probably going to move to more of a basketball type thing where it's kind of a one and done scenario. So, in my opinion, I would not like to see that happen. Just let people draft high school players. I don't want the college game to be like college basketball where, you have a guy for 1 year and he's really good. And baseball's a little bit different. You may have a freshman that comes in highly touted and has a pretty good year as a freshman and then, turns into a bigger type player in the next year or two. But we're just going to have to wait and see. But I don't think that scenario you're describing happens. I think if the high school players are no longer draft eligible, baseball is going to go to like a one and done. Now, best case scenario, I think for college baseball is if high school players can't be drafted and they can't go one and done, and they have to stay for at least 2 years now with the draft time, with the draft date farther back. Now there's more sophomore eligible players. But still, I think that would be the best case scenario. Question to you, Kyle. What are local coaches saying about Georgia Tech and their offense? Do the coaches and advisors prefer to send their players currently to Georgia Tech or UGA? Well, I can say this about UGA. UGA's issue right now in high school recruiting is, let me stop sharing this and we'll look at Georgia Tech's offense in a second. UGA's issue right now is high school players now know that Georgia's been going heavy in the portal. Now, I did talk to I did talk to Brock at Georgia, and he did say they're gonna focus more on recruiting high school players moving forward. With Wes Johnson taking over, they felt like they had to revamp out of the portal, and you kind of can't wait for a couple freshman classes to come in to really build out a strong roster in the SEC. That's just not really something you can do anymore. So they felt like they had to go to the portal for the first couple years pretty heavily. But he was very candid with me. He was like, it's like, we're feeling it. Like, we're feeling it from high school players. And you saw even last year, they had some really highly talented freshmen on their team, either not even make it to spring or transfer out after the season. And you saw Bryce Clavin, who's now at Clemson. And he was one of the most highly touted high school recruits in the country. Didn't play much, got into a few games, and now he's at Clemson. So I think Georgia Tech is winning on high school players right now because they're seen as a program that's not going to go get a ton of portal guys. They're still going to go get some portal guys, but they're not going to go get a ton. And I think both teams offensively are doing great. I mean, UGA is that, from what we've learned of Wes Johnson so far is, he wants athletic guys that hit bombs. Like Georgia wants up and down the order. They want guys that hit bombs. And they're doing that, right? They're going to be one of the highest home run teams every year. So I think the offenses are a little bit different. Georgia Tech is more of like a Wes Johnson style offense. And really, I mean, it's a James Ramsey style offense as well, but like the kind of lead the league in walks, lead the league in doubles. You're still going to hit a lot of home runs, but they're not looking for just a bunch of dudes that can only hit home runs. They want to have a dynamic offense that can steal bases. They're going to walk a ton. If we look at their stats here in a second, I mean, they're walking more than they're striking out as a team, which is really impressive. So they're different. They're different styles, but I think right now, UGA's reputation amongst high school players is really tough to get on the field there as a freshman because they may bring in a bunch of portal guys, and they know that. Buck, I'm still trying to decide who my favorite Georgia Tech color commentator is. Oh, wow, that hits that. But Dusty's really good. And the thing that Dusty and I talk about all the time is we both really see the game like almost the exact same way. Like when we watch games together, we're both thinking the exact same thing about pitch selection and pitch calling and decision making. And we really, I think, see the game in a rare way. Like, I don't think there's not a ton of people, even that have a lot of baseball experience, that see the game the way we do. I don't know how Dusty got it. It must just be instincts from Dusty. I mean, I grew up with a dad who was in professional baseball and a general manager. And so I had, dinner conversations about stuff like that. And after every game, when I would call my dad, like we'd talk through stuff like that. So I don't know how Dusty got it. Maybe it was from hanging out with me at Georgia Tech. I don't know if he'll like that response though. Blue Green. Why don't more guys come back for their senior year rather than sign for cheap? Most guys don't have pro tools. I think you're going to start seeing that happen more as NIL continues to grow in college baseball. It's a great point. I'm going to say Green Street, but it's a great point because those senior signs or those junior signs who are offered like 60 grand could go get NIL probably from a team that's for at least twice as much. So I think you are going to see that, although you are still fighting against the allure of being able to say you were a professional baseball player. And listen, the scouts are really good at talking to players about this too. You know, they're going to tell them, you know, the older you are, usually the less time you are, the less of a leash you're going to have to perform in professional baseball, and you're going to have to start. You know, you're going to have to move quickly. And so, but I do think you're right. I think at the end of the day, we're going to start seeing more people stay in college for the NIL money because, you know, look at it this way: if you're a player, even if you're a sophomore eligible player, and you have a good year and you're offered like a couple $100,000 or $300,000, well, if you're that good, you can probably play for one of the best programs in the country and get that much or close to that much every year for the next 3 years or next 2 years. And if the NCAA moves eligibility to 5 years, which is from what I've heard is probably going to happen now, even after your sophomore year, you got 3 more years to bring in NIL money. So we are definitely going to see that happen more and more. But with that, going back to the Arrington's question, that makes me think that if high school players can't be drafted, if that ends up happening, you're gonna see more. You're gonna see a one and done type situation with the draft where guys are draft eligible as freshmen, and maybe they have to declare for the draft though. Like I don't know what. Maybe you put some guardrails up that are gonna maybe prevent guys from trying to sign go one and done. But we just have to wait and see for that. Was up at Clemson this weekend. The way the team honors military vets in the 4th inning is great. I like Bakich for that alone. Every school should do it. Yeah. I like that a lot too, Burke. Like where the players go up there and they have all the veterans stand and just kind of honor them. Yeah. I mean, that trust me, that plays in Clemson, South Carolina. That plays pretty much everywhere in the Southeast. That's for sure. I think it plays pretty much all over the country, but I think it's a great thing they do. And again, it's just about, when you want your fan base to really fall in love with the team and fall in love with the coaching staff, those type things are, I think a lot of people don't really appreciate it, but that's earning Bakich points with the fan base. All right. So let's look up Georgia Tech stats. I'm going to just compare them to Miami, looking at these really the top 2 offenses in the country. All right, let me pull this up here. Okay. So here are Georgia Tech's numbers. So what you see right away is the Georgia Tech team batting average about 40 points higher than Miami. So they are from a pure hitting perspective, they're hitting a little bit better than Miami. As far as OPS, they're very similar. Miami has a slight edge there, but just slightly. Georgia Tech's OPSing right about 1,200. Miami actually has more stolen bases than Georgia Tech right now, but Georgia Tech's 15 of 17. Miami has played one more game. But really one of the most impressive stats for me for the Georgia Tech team is they have 79 walks to 67 strikeouts. Like that is insane. That is insane. Listen, it's very normal on a really good offense to have 3, 4, even 5 hitters that are walking a little bit more than they're striking out. But usually you have a couple guys in there that are striking out a ton. And really, if you look at their lineup, Ryan Zuckerman has 12 of their strikeouts. Like the rest of these guys have 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, and then you see 7 with Drew Rogers, who he's got some swing and miss. And then Caleb Daniel has 9. I do think that's the one spot in the lineup where I think you are going to start seeing a little bit of a. That's the one spot in the lineup where I think you are maybe even this weekend going to see a swap. Caleb Daniel reportedly had a terrible fall, like an absolutely abysmal fall from what I've heard from multiple people. And again, this was a guy who was really good as a freshman, just really good. And so they're giving him a lot of opportunities and obviously he hit 2 home runs in game 1 of the season. So everything looked like, okay, that was just a fall. He's going to be fine. But I've always said this. I don't really like his swing. I think he's got a good approach, but you can see like he's striking out a lot through 26 at bats. He's only got 3 walks, which is fine. He's still kind of walking above a 10% rate. But in college baseball now, with how tight the zones are and the pitchers just don't have great command, like a 10% walk rate in college baseball is just not that impressive. You look at some of these other guys, Von Lackey's got 11 walks and 30 at bats. Will Baker's got 11 walks and 30 at bats. Ken Schmidt's got 8 walks and 15 at bats. And Ken Schmidt's been out recently. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. Maybe if Dusty's in the chat, maybe Dusty can help us out here. But Advincula's got 6. All these guys are really, really drawing a ton of walks. Burris has 8 walks and 36 at bats. Georgia Tech does only have 14 home runs in nine games. So, Miami's got double the home runs. Miami's driving the ball at the ballpark. I do think Georgia Tech's home run numbers are going to continue to climb. I don't think they're going to lead the ACC in home runs. I think they'll be in the top 6 in home runs, maybe even like the top 3 or 4, but they are going to hit a ton of doubles, ton of walks. They're always, and what I said on the broadcast, most recent broadcast I was on, is that it's a hard offense to keep down because they walk at such a high rate. When you look at 79 walks and 333 at bats, that's like a 20% walk rate almost, which is really insane for a team. And so it's just a hard team to keep down, really hard team to keep down, because you're always going to have guys on base. And so even when your team is not hitting the ball well, you're still going to have run scoring opportunities, and it's going to take one swing of the bat. So that's why this offense is so terrifying. But we can compare and contrast it. Like Miami and Georgia Tech both right now are just firing on all cylinders offensively. Blue green. How many ACC teams do you see hosting this year? That's a great question. Let me just pull up the teams here. Let me stop sharing this now. Let me go down to ACC. And I'll pull this up on stream. Just give me 1 second. Don't let it beat you, Kyle. Don't let it beat you. Okay. Let's talk about potential host, right? Because I hate the early season, pull this up for you guys. Okay. Let me move this over here so you guys can see this better. Okay. So now I got to scroll back up because I messed up the window here. Okay. All right. There's the top 25. Now there's the A10, ACC. Okay. So let's look at this. And remember, this is really early. Like Florida State's got 2 losses, but they've played some tough teams early. NC State's looked really good. Wake Forest has looked really good. Virginia's looked really good. Even they're 7-1. I know from a pitching perspective from Virginia, some people have had, a little bit of some of the Virginia fans have complained a little bit about Virginia. as far as pitching. Louisville's 4-4 now. Again, like think about Louisville. They don't look great right now, but that's a preseason like top 15 team. So as far as hosts, I think the ACC is probably going to get like 5, maybe even 6 hosts this year. It just depends on the committee. I mean, the SEC is going to get treated like the SEC, right? We all know that. But if you look at it right now, Miami's 10-0, Clemson's 8-0, Wake Forest is 7-1, North Carolina's 8-1. Virginia Tech 7-1, and we're going to see what they're made of this weekend off the bat on Friday night against A&M. Georgia Tech's 8-1, number 5 in the country. Duke, who a lot of people thought, they're not going to be great this first year. They lost a lot of guys to Virginia with Pollard leaving. I think Mascara's pitchers are going to pitch. I think we all know that at this point. And I think he's making some huge moves at Duke, hiring the new GM. Duke's hired a GM for their baseball team. They got a brand new facility that just got announced. It's getting built. It's going to be a state-of-the-art pitching lab. Weird. Didn't expect that with Mascara and what they did at Wake. But Duke could be a sleeper this year. Although I don't think Duke's going to be a host, but I think Duke could surprise a lot of teams. But when you're looking at it right now, you got Florida State, you got NC State, you got Georgia Tech, so that's 3. You got Wake Forest. I don't think Virginia is going to be a host, but again, don't ever doubt. I mean, you got a lot of teams here that could potentially be hosts. So in my mind, Green Street, I think at minimum you're going to see 4 ACC hosts at minimum, and I think it's more likely to be around 5 or 6. The ACC is very strong this year, very strong, and again, it's a question of, is the SEC going to get like are you going to be able to go 16-14 in the SEC and be a host? Right. I mean, that's kind of, we saw what happened with Georgia Tech last year, really getting snubbed of a host, even though they were the number 1 team in the ACC at the end of conference play, which is just, and quite frankly, ridiculous. And they had the Danny Hall retirement story going around. And I think a lot of people thought Georgia Tech is on the bubble to host because they had a little bit of an easier schedule in the ACC, but with Danny Hall retiring, like they're going to get one. And don't think the Georgia Tech team doesn't remember that either. I mean, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder because of that. They all felt like they should have been a host, and they probably should have been. Just being unbiased, as hard as some of you may think that is for me, like that team should have got a host. Canes is exactly right. It was disrespect. It was disrespect, really, not just of Georgia Tech, but of the ACC. When you finish at the top of your conference and there's 3 teams below you that get to host, it's just a little bit crazy. It's when you're a 40+ win team and you were number 1 in the regular season in your conference. That was surprising. One of the things I also wanted to talk about, I thought was, I'm sure most of you guys saw the Max Clark situation where I think he got interviewed pregame about like the diamond necklace that he had all over his, he had like 3 diamond necklaces, and I mean, who knows how much money they were, and it's like, dude, why are you spending that kind of money on that stuff? I mean, put the money in the stock market right now. Put it in AI stocks. Put it in an ETF. It's heavily focused on AI and energy and data centers. Like you're gonna make you invest that wisely. You'll, in the next 3 years, you're gonna like triple your money. Minimum triple, probably more than that. So here's the situation, Canes. So Max Clark is playing left field. Has about as a terrible a game as you can have. Misses 2 fly balls, drops 1, and then like really bad route. Doesn't like include the wind in his route, right? Which is a really good outfielder, always knows what the wind's doing and knows, okay, wind's blowing it this way. Even if the ball's hit to my left, like I got to play it like it's going to come back a little bit. I can't take a route to exactly where it would go with no wind. I got to go to where the wind's going to take it. Okay. That's what a good outfielder does. So he literally botches a routine fly ball. And people were saying, oh, the sun might have been in his eyes. The sun wasn't in his eyes. I mean, he was like locked in on it, ready to catch it and just like hit off his glove. Nothing to do with the sun. And I think, again, this is just like what your casual fan doesn't understand is a really good outfielder, especially on a high fly ball. Like you can change the angle at which you're looking at the ball by just moving to the side this way, moving to the side this way, and looking a totally different direction at it. And yeah, this is not financial advice, Buck. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, AI stock performance lately is down, but again, we all know what's coming, right? We all know what's coming. And a lot of that's just market manipulation. I mean, I think if you look at a lot of these AI stocks, as I get off on this tangent, when you look at the actual fundamentals, you're like, why is the stock going down? There's nothing fundamentally that's come out about the stock that makes any sense on why earnings are up or earnings are down, but that's because they're spending a lot of money on building out the data centers or whatever. And so from an investor's perspective, and again, this is not financial advice, but when you are looking at stocks, there is market manipulation. Like retail investors usually get burned because they see stock going down and they sell. And the institutional traders are, they got to cover shorts, so they're shorting or they're selling to cover their shorts, and then they're going to buy at the bottom, and they're going to make up the difference and more when it goes back up. So I think a lot of what you're seeing right now, Buck, especially in the AI and the data center stuff, is just market manipulation. That's my expert opinion. It could be fake. I doubt it is, though, Canes. Like, just knowing what I know of Max Clark, and I don't have anything against him, but I don't think he's out there wearing fake diamond chains. Maybe he is, but I don't think so. But anyway, he also looked really bad on a check swing, like fell over. Didn't know what the count was. He walked, and one at bat he walked and didn't know it was ball 4. And even one of the announcers, which I believe was maybe CJ Nikowski, he was like, man, when I was playing, if a guy showed up to big league camp and got into a game with no big league time and really just like barely any time in AA, and he was wearing that, he would get destroyed by the players in the clubhouse. And, so that's how baseball's changed. I mean, when I was in big league camp with the Brewers and the Reds, I listened to my dad, and my dad was like, just don't draw attention to yourself. Like, don't walk around like you own the place. Sit at your locker, sit with the guys when you're eating. Don't do anything. And one of the guys actually that I was in camp with, who was like a non-roster invite like me, he would have his laptop out eating breakfast, like posted up, like trading or something, doing stock stuff. And like he got a lot of crap for that. I'll just say it like that. AI bubble will crash massively in the next 12 to 18 months. They're all self-dealing and there's no ROI. Believe me, I work in it. No, I'm not. I guess what my I'm actually not talking about AI stocks in general. I'm talking more about like the supply chains of AI. So your data centers, energy, because you're 100% right, Buck. I think the same thing. A lot of these AI companies, a lot of them are going to crash, but there are going to be some winners, and the winners are going to scoop up all the infrastructure. And so if you're investing in the infrastructure that AI requires to continue to develop, that's where I think the wins are. So, like Iron, what is it? Is it T1 Energy, Micron? These companies that are supplying the infrastructure for AI companies. That's what I'm looking at right now, and that's what I'm actually a big believer in Stanley. Stanley is it Miller? You maybe know Buck, who's a very famous, like, I think hedge fund guy, and he actually worked for George Soros, funny enough. And his whole thing is like, his strategy is like, I'm going to invest all my eggs in like 2 or 3 businesses, and I'm going to invest all my eggs in a couple baskets. I'm going to watch the baskets very closely. Because like in my retirement stuff, that's diversified and everything. But when I'm making personal investments, I'm doing research on businesses where I think I can actually make a big return. Because that's where, honestly, that's where if you want to make money fast and you know what you're looking at, and you're smart and you watch it carefully every day, and you when an earnings comes up or an investor call comes up, you're on it. You have a better idea. But I don't disagree with you about that, Buck, for sure. I think that's definitely going to happen because all these AI companies can't win, right? It's like any other business. There's going to be winners and there's going to be losers, and usually there's more losers than winners. So 100%. And what you're saying about ROI, like all the AI companies are doing right now is spending money. Like there's no return on investment for the foreseeable future, for sure. Keynes, I'm rooting for him to fail, not because of anything against him, but his failure will be another reason why teams will be scared to draft high school guys and will push for them to go to college. I will say this. I was looking at his stats. For a kid his age, like he's done really well. The power numbers showed up more last year. He does have a good approach to play. He walks a lot. And again, in this environment, in this era of college, I think he's like a 270 hitter for a career, which is, it's okay. I would like to see that number higher, but in this era, it's like these hitters don't get taught that batting average is important. But I think for his age and the level he's gotten to, he's done well. Is he going to be a superstar in the big leagues? He hasn't shown anything yet that would warrant that kind of a prediction. Some people are like, man, this guy's going to be amazing. I'm not saying he can't be. He just hasn't done anything yet where you're like, wow. And so you just got to. I think he's going to be a big leaguer. But the question is, like, when you make a super high pick on a guy, especially a top 5 pick, and he's a high school guy, like you're expecting this guy to be an all-star every year. That's when you draft a guy that early, that's the expectation, is that he's not just a big league regular. Certainly you would hope at minimum he's a regular for 10 years, but you're expecting a guy to pick that early to be a regular all-star. Keynes, it's a bit sinister, but I can about the old English M, not the MLB. I don't know what that means, Keynes. Bucky, then might as well put it all on black. No, it's not the same thing. That is a totally random thing. Stock market is a lot of, I get the sentiment about the stock market being gambling in a sense because, right, like companies can lie about things. Companies do that, not all the time, but, we do see businesses all of a sudden like everything was fake. Everything's not, investors got screwed. But I think if you do proper due diligence and you just understand economics and where the economy is going, right? If you can look into the future and think, okay, where's the economy going? And the fact is that AI, not, whatever AI company ends up winning, AI is going to dominate our economy. Jobs are going to go, a lot of jobs are going to go away. And so it's no question that AI is going to have a massive impact on the economy. And because of that, whichever AI company does win is going to need infrastructure, like I talked about earlier. So now this is a stock market show as well. I'm def long gold. Yeah, I think it's funny. Like, I think one of my favorite sayings is, gold doesn't go up, the dollar goes down. So if you have any belief that the dollar is going to the value of the dollar is going to go up at some point, based on what we're seeing right now, that's probably unlikely. So gold is probably, for the foreseeable future, just going to continue to rise, though we are seeing it kind of slow down a little bit. right? Silver was up to like what 130, and I didn't check today. Let me pull up my handy dandy trader view. Silver was down, was up to like 130, and it went all the way back down to, what is it now? 89. So both gold and silver are starting to slow down. I mean, and I remember I was a guy I followed like a couple years ago when silver was at like 20 something. He was talking about how silver is really, really needed in like a lot of these new technologies and batteries. And so it wasn't just like a store of value, but it was also something that actually had some utilization cause. Oh, you don't care. Kane's, in my business, I need people, not AI. AI helps me with some things, but I need humans, not AI. Yeah, exactly right. Like there's definitely going to be a lot of businesses out there that still need human beings to do things. But when you're, basically from what I've been communicated from people that I trust is that like basically anything that if your job is like sitting at a computer and like filling things out and typing things and like that ain't going to be a job soon. Like maybe it's a year from now, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5, but it's probably not 10 years from now. It's def on question that the current gen of AI will win. More likely gen AI flames out and it's 10 years before better models come around. We're way away from AGI. See, Buck, that's what you say, and I trust you. But there's a lot of people that say it's, the AI is already like trying to, when it gets told it's going to get shut down, it's trying to do stuff and it's trying to like blackmail people. And so I don't know, and that's really the fulcrum of the AI discussion is like, how far away are we from that happening, from artificial general intelligence? And I think it's just one of those things like, who knows? Yeah, but that is fake, Kyle. If you go to a silver dealer right now, you will still pay 100 to 110. No, I agree. It's, if you're buying it an actual silver bar, it's different than if you're buying it on like a trading exchange. But I think with both gold, with silver, we've seen kind of slow down a little bit though. Gold is probably still going to be, majority of jobs really need humans, not robots. AI can help with accounting, but you still want a CPA tax advisor. Yeah, what my belief is, especially in the financial space, is that these big corporations that employ however many people on their finance team, you're still going to need like a finance team. I just think that team is going to get smaller. And then just the natural progression of things, that team's probably going to keep getting smaller. People can do malicious things with Gen AI. That's not meaningful economic impact. Well, I mean, it can, but I think this is the other thing though, Buck. Like if, I know like Elon Musk is building the Optimus robot right now. Right. And so what you're saying is true. Like two things can be true at once, that AI is going to do probably a bunch of horrendous stuff. It already is kind of doing horrendous stuff. You can see that on your X feed and Instagram. Like you can see some of the horrendous stuff AI is just making from commands, of course, from people. But AI is definitely, I don't think AI, I don't know if I think that all of the AI companies right now are all going to flame out. I think there's going to be a few winners. There's probably going to be one major winner. There's going to be a few smaller winners, and the rest will flame out. I'm not invested in any individual AI companies. I'm just invested in the bottlenecks, right? Which is energy. So your data centers. I'm also invested right now in defense stocks, I think for obvious reasons. And some like up and coming defense companies that are smaller cap right now, but could end up being really big. It's funny how this college baseball stream, and now we're talking economics, but this is how I am like every day. I talk about stuff with everybody. My wife's like, can we just relax on the couch? She actually told me the other night, she's like, you live life on a soapbox. like the way I am with you guys talking right now, this is what my wife has to put up with 24/7. And she said that the other day. She's like, you just like live on a soapbox. Like you're always, you're always like philosophizing. By the way, AI models aren't cheap to run. You don't save much over humans. Elon Musk is hyping robots, has little to show other than market manipulation. I mean, there have been some very high level people that have seen, I think 3.0, Optimus 3 or Optimus 3.0, and they've said like, I don't think people will ever remember that Tesla made cars. So we'll see. It like, you're not wrong, Buck, in the sense that there's nothing concrete yet, but I'm also interested to see the SpaceX IPO and if it's gonna merge with Tesla or not, because I think that'll be, if you think about, I think Elon Musk said recently that the future for data centers is to put them in space, because then you can just put a bunch of solar panels on them and they can get full energy from the sun all day. You don't have to worry about clouds. And listen, that's probably going to be a while before they can actually do that. But if you get into SpaceX early and SpaceX all of a sudden becomes that company doing that, probably a lot of money to be made. And it's like, just be smart, whatever you decide to do with any investment, don't just YOLO it without doing your due diligence. But you're right. The AI models are not cheap to run. They are not cheap to run. They cost, I think in that great interview with Sam Altman, where they're like, hey, what justifies this valuation of like, what I think it was like something $1 trillion, and your revenues are like 68, I think it was something like 68 billion or something billion. And he got mad. He was like, oh, you want to take your shares back? I can find someone to buy them for you right now. Back to baseball. I got my son on the heavy training regimen this winter. He added 6 miles per hour to his fastball and 15 miles per hour to exit velo. Helps that he grew 6 inches as well. Yeah, and you know what I tell guys all the time, Buck, is like, nothing will improve your metrics on the baseball field and just your overall athleticism and ability than getting in the weight room, right? Like that's the number one thing you see with young players is, they're going to their hitting coach or their hitting facility, whatever, 3 times a week, and they're doing their pitching stuff, and they're getting hooked up to all the cameras and the motion cap, but they're not strong enough. They're not in the weight room. And so it doesn't surprise me that he's seeing that kind of result. You put the work in, the results come. Like that's, it's the biggest lie in the world that, when you hear these guys like, I worked really hard, I didn't really see much gain. It's like, no, you didn't. That just means you didn't work hard. You're lying. You're lying to yourself and you're lying to me that you worked hard. I've never seen somebody actually put in hard work, dedicated to it, and not see results. Like that my sophomore summer, when I put on like 18 pounds in 3 months, I was eating 6,000 calories a day. I was working out 5 to 6 times a week, hard, like pushing myself. And it was a struggle to eat 6,000 calories a day, but I had to do it. I had to force feed myself the last couple meals of the day. And then after 2 or 3 weeks, it was like, it was kind of more normal and easier to do. But yeah, protein. And that's the other thing, Buck. Like that's the other thing that kids don't do. Like even some guys will work hard in the weight room, but they're not eating enough calories. They're not eating enough protein. So they're not seeing the maximized benefit. And, there's guys like literally you could eat 1.5 grams of protein per your goal pound or per your body weight, per pound that your goal is. And you actually see like even better results. So, I mean, this data is still coming out. He's 5'8", but still has more to go. 80 miles per hour velo and 90 mile per hour exit velo would bat at 14 isn't bad. Finally ranked too. Yeah, at 14. And that's great at 14. That's great at 14, right? He's got 4 more years before he's going to be 18, senior in high school. That's probably better than all my metrics at 14. I'll tell you that much. I'm excited. The evolution in this chat will be legendary. When it's time for Buck's son to be recruited, Miami will be the school on top. Yeah, they might be, man. I think I'm excited for the Canes. And I just want to say, I remember last year, I know I said this on, I think last stream, but I remember last year when all the Canes fans were down in the dumps and what's his name? Why can't I remember head coach's name? Help me out, Canes. I'm having just my brain fog's really kicking in. I need to take some more creatine. From laughing stock to top dogs, and we land Buck's son. Oh my gosh. JT Arteaga. I remember guys saying, well, JD's not the right guy and he's, he can't do it. And I'm like, dude, like JD is the 100%. Me and Dusty both, we were like, you guys are all wrong. JD is the man for Miami. JD is the guy. Like he is part of the culture of Miami. He's going to land all the Latin kids from down there. Like Miami's always going to have a very strong Latin culture in their team. And because of that, they always have really good infield defense. Like they always have like big league infielders in their defense. It's always been like that. Sorry, Canes. He wants high academic. Oof. Miami's got good academics. Maybe you can't consider it high academic, but it's good academics. It's good academics. But you know what Buck's kind of inferring there, though, Canes? He's inferring like a Georgia Tech. That's what he's inferring. He's basically, and I want to pull this up too. Let me pull this up. I thought this was spectacular. We have that, and we have elite networking. Of course, the biggest selling point sitting next to me at the light, Buck. That would be crazy. I can't imagine seeing Canes and Buck sitting next to each other at the light. Okay, let me go to my profile here. You guys probably saw this. I tweeted about it, but this is Jim Schlossnagle at Texas. Let me turn this up so you guys can hear it too. Talking about analytics and the players, like what he thinks about players that want all this data and information.
Some of them are too data hungry. They want a lot of information. The least data hungry player is Mendoza, which I love. He doesn't. I don't need to see that stuff. I just want to compete. I think there are some of the pitchers that like knowing kind of their pitch shapes. I think, and not from a standpoint of have it be a crutch, but from a confidence standpoint. It's like, yeah, that's when I execute this pitch, it's a really good pitch. It doesn't mean it's not going to get hit and not going to get hit hard, because that's what baseball is. But yeah, that's a really good question. I'm not sure anybody that's super data hungry is probably not a good player, because it's way more about being a competitor than it is about being perfect with data. And data's not with you in the batter's box. All you have is yourself in the bat and getting a good pitch to hit.
You want to know why Jim Schlossnagle has been so successful? It's because of that right there. What he said, he hits the nail on the head, and that's what I tweeted. The reality is that, and I know you guys are going back and forth in the chat. I'll get to it in a second. The reality is that the players that are, he's exactly right. The players that want all the information and want to know everything, it's a crutch. It's like, he's exactly right. He's like the data and analytics are not with you in the batter's box. When you're in the batter's box, it's about competing. It's about your approach. It's about being convicted in your approach. It's about knowing what you want to do and knowing what your job is and executing on it. Like, you ain't thinking about your rotational acceleration in the batter's box. If you want to know that, fine. But in today's era for high school and college players, all you see across social media is there's this guy, his last name's Vega. He's been going back and forth with Jeff Fry recently. And he talked about how he wasn't successful at Division I. He was a really bad college player. Just terrible numbers. And he said his success or his failure was because he didn't have a good swing. And I'm like, dude, okay, so that's how I know I would never send my son to a hitting coach like that, because he thinks hitting is the swing. He thinks he thinks to be a good hitter, you have to have a good swing. And it's just not true. It's not true. I did not have a great swing. I was a elite hitter at the college level. I was a borderline elite, at least in the batting average department, hitter in professional baseball. 15 years, 20 years ago, I would have been considered a really good hitter. So you don't need an elite swing to be an elite hitter. That's just someone who has no idea what they're talking about, because the swing is one aspect of a hitter, but the mental side is another aspect of the hitter, and probably a bigger aspect of the hitter. I've seen a ton of guys with elite swings that can't hit. I've never seen a guy who's an elite hitter with an okay swing not have success. Now, the okay swing may put constraints on his overall results. Like talking about myself, the reason I didn't hit for as much power is because my swing plane just didn't generate enough lift, right? When I met the ball and hit the ball hardest, it was a low line drive or a ground ball, or maybe kind of a deep line drive into the gap. So my power was constrained because of my swing, but I was still a really good hitter. Right? So if you ever hear someone say that, run away. No, he's referring to Yale, Harvard, Penn, Dartmouth, but you will still have to pay for the tuition at those schools, Buck. I pulled all D1 baseball schools with under 25% acceptance rate. Yes, Georgia Tech was on there. Sorry, no, Miami. We'll see when Jonathan makes that phone call to you and your son, Buck. That's right. Ivies plus Duke, UVA, UNC, Michigan, Notre Dame, my choice. UCLA, Vandy, Wake. Yeah. Don't make an irrational decision, Buck. I'll say this, like the Ivies now are harder to get into because most of them are now no longer test score optional. So you really have to crush your SAT or ACT. For a while there, as long as you had taken 5 AP courses and had, a really good GPA, and they liked you as a player, they could get you in. But now with the test score optional going away, especially at like Harvard, Yale, like obviously the really big Ivies, it's a lot harder to get into now. Georgia Tech, if you're on baseball scholarship, you do not need to get like a 1500 SAT. We actually had a player that one of our guys is representing who got like a 1580 or something on his SAT, and MIT was like, it may be enough. And I'm thinking, what? Like he damn near got a perfect score. Like what? So, the Ivies, while it's a lot, it's always been difficult. Don't get me wrong, but the Ivies are a lot more difficult now. Because you got to ace your SAT and your ACT, and some people are just not good test takers. I was always a great test taker, which helped me out a lot, because when I was in school before I went back to finish my degree, I did not pay attention much. I did not do a great job paying attention to class. I was there for baseball. As Brian Prince, my hitting coach, said when we walked on campus, he said, baseball second, school first. Baseball second, school first. That's what he said. And that's what I did. And then I went back after my pro career to finish my degree, and I was mature and like 28, 29 years old. I thought, if I got to be in class, I might as well just pay attention, take some notes. It was amazing how much easier the classes were. It was amazing how I never really got stressed taking tests. I was always a really good test taker. I was one of those people that could kind of, even if I didn't know, I could kind of read the question and kind of figure out what it wanted me to do and put a good enough answer on there. Especially in some of those harder Georgia Tech classes that are just like, why am I taking this? I'm a business major. So we'll see how Buck's son continues to develop. That would be hilarious. It would be hilarious, Canes, if it was like final. He came down to like 3 final schools. It was like Miami, Georgia Tech, in like an Ivy League or one of those other, UNC maybe, UVA. A lot of ACC schools in there. Wake. But typically the really high end players, like the guy Matthew Shorey, who I worked with, who's at Vandy, like it came down to Duke, Georgia Tech, and Vandy. right? It was all three very high academic schools, but very good baseball programs. And he went with Vandy. But I think we got a lot of exciting baseball to watch this weekend. I'm out flying to Houston tomorrow for the Houston 1000. We'll be at the Texas Coastal game tomorrow night. If you stream, I'll live report in. Perfect. I got to think about what I'm doing tomorrow night, but I'll probably definitely stream at least twice this weekend. So, but Buck, no, even if it's not while you're at the game, I'm going to need to report back on what your thoughts are. When we do go live, I'm going to need to report back on what you're seeing. Baseball families care about academics 100%. You know, that's the majority of players, of baseball players that want to play in college, like they also understand that like the old commercial, for the vast majority of players, they're going to go pro in something other than sports. And I feel like baseball players and their families understand that. They understand that, listen, no matter, even if you do play, like even if you get to the big leagues for 3 or 4 years and you do have a little bit of a nest egg financially, like you're still going to need to work. You're still going to, you got 40 years left before you're probably done, unless you just, again, you invest smartly or wisely, I guess would be the right thing to say. I feel like Dusty hopped in the chat, said, "What's up, everybody?" and then peaced out. Am I wrong about that? I got to plan this and have Dusty on the live. He does refer to himself as the voice of the Jackets. I will say he's going to be on call more than me this year, and that is in large part due to me coaching all last year and not doing any games. So Dusty has kind of taken over that role. So he's going to be seeing a lot of college games. So he's going to be good to have on here to just talk through some of the teams he's seen. But we're going to have him on here and not just saying hi in the chat and then peacing out. Like, surely he's still awake, I would think. But I know Buck's heading out. I'm probably going to head out too now. So thanks for joining, guys. Great conversations. We're getting close to conference play. This weekend's going to feel a lot more like conference play. We got a lot of really good games coming up. And pretty soon we'll be in conference play in the SEC, ACC, everywhere, and it's going to be just like every game is massively important. So it's exciting. I'm hoping that the streaming software that I use is having issues with X. So there's like a workaround, but it just doesn't seem to be working nearly as well. It looks like it's functioning now. It actually looks like it's functioning now. But for some reason it's not showing me viewers from there on stream. So we'll wait and see. But all right, guys, that's going to be it tonight. Thanks for joining in. I will be live again a couple more times this weekend as kind of we start getting into the grind part of the season. So that's going to be exciting. Have a good night. Hydrate. Sleep well. See you this weekend.